Director, Legal Services, Mr. Michael Karuru, and other staff who are assisting the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Alice Wahome. Our next step is to get from you your documents as indicated in the invitation letter. If you have them as a bundle, you will give to the clerk after I mention them. They will check your copies that you leave with us against your originals, which you may be at liberty to take back after the meeting. You have your compliance with tax obligations from KRA?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Use the microphone, please.
I do.
Clearance with the Higher Education Loans Board?
Yes, I do, Chair.
Clearance with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission?
Yes, I do.
Certificate of Good Conduct?
I have one.
From the DCI?
Yes, I have one.
Very good. Your national ID?
I do have the original with me.
Your academic certificates?
Yes, they are there, Chair.
Okay, that gracious lady will have them and compare your copies with the originals. Where there's a deficiency, she will report here and we will advise you.
The only deficiency is that I could not trace my original certificate, University of Nairobi, but I have a letter from the university dated October 12th certifying that degree.
I am also a witness that you went to the University of Nairobi.
Thank you,
You are
Chair.
2 years behind me.
Yes, I thought it was 1 year.
1 year behind me.
Or thereabout.
And you duly graduated and practiced law with me in the corridors of the High Courts.
Thank you, Chair. I still hold the current practicing certificate and have put one here.
Excellent. I don't think any member has any issue with that. The next question to you, Honorable Alice. Are you a dual citizen of any country apart from being a Kenyan citizen?
I'm a Kenyan citizen, no other citizenship.
We will give you 10 minutes to introduce yourself. Who is Alice Wahome? What are you? What do you want from this committee? Under 10 minutes, the better.
Yes.
Thereafter, I'll ask you 1 or 2 other questions. Then we'll open it to the plenary.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Speaker, sir. I am still a member of Parliament as I appear before this committee, so I recognize you, Mr. Speaker, and the Deputy Speaker, the honorable members of the committee. My full names are Alice Modhoni Wahome. I am the daughter of a peasant, small-scale coffee farmer. My father died at age 100 years, and I hope I can reach that age, Mr. Speaker. Chairman, to this committee, I was born in a village called Muruka. I went to primary school just next door my home, which was a kilometer away, Karumu Primary School, with other boys and girls in the village. I walked to school. I came back to school, went without lunch when there was no lunch, and I finished my primary school there. And I joined Siakago Girls for my O-levels. We did O-levels, Form 1 to Form 4. I finished in 1974 and then joined, I finished in 1977 and joined A-levels for 2 years, Bishop Gatimu Girls. It is from there, Gadu Girls, that I was called to Nairobi University as a law student. And I did my 3 years. After 3 years at Nairobi University, I graduated with a Bachelor of Laws degree, and then I joined law school for 1 year Adatuda Jackson, and thereafter, my first job was a state counsel at the office of the Attorney General, where I practiced for about 2 years. I left and joined Makecha and Company, the late Makecha and Company. From there, Mr. Chairman, I set up AM Wahome and Company Advocates. After finishing, I think I did work for until 2014, when I was joined by my daughter, who is a lawyer, as a partner. And I believe she's in this room, so that we formed Wahome and Akendi, where if I am approved by this committee, I'll be resigning. I have held my practicing certificate from 1985 to date. It's still valid for practice, but I'm acutely aware that if I'm approved, I will not be able to practice. It is I would like to say something about my young age. I have worked like any other village girl. I have milked. I know how to milk. I know how to cut grass. I have cooked for my brothers, as was expected, even though some of them were older than me. I didn't understand why, but I know I did those jobs. I have followed my mother to the garden, to the shamba, up and down, and she was one of my driving forces or factors, because she was a hard worker. My father was a polygamous man. We are 48 siblings in my home, and
very hard-working man.
Something I don't wish most men or many men to do, but and especially with the current economic times, I know that it is really a situation that I looked forward to actually making an improvement in my life. In terms of my upbringing, I could say within the village, I was one of the few privileged girls, because my mother was very keen to ensure that I go to school. My father educated all of us through his coffee farm, about 9 acres of coffee. I was determined from that age to make a difference as a girl. I looked forward to leaving the village and joining other working people. And as I sit here looking forward for approval, and I hope that I will be approved, I would want to encourage other girls from the village going to school even without shoes today, maybe no water in their homes, no running tap, no food sometimes, but that there is a hope and there is a future, and they can be able to work and reach higher heights than what is their situation. I think, Chairman, I'm saying that I'd also want to let women know that there are many opportunities. If women understood, despite the barriers, patriarchal barriers, cultural barriers, economic barriers, society barriers, that there is still a lot of opportunities unexploited, and I am looking forward to exploit the current opportunity if I am approved. Chairman, at this stage, allow me to say thank you to His Excellency the President for finding it fit. It's really one opportunity in a lifetime for a woman who has come from where I have come from. I say that because the vulnerabilities of a growing girl, the vulnerabilities are very huge. Escaping pregnancy at primary level, escaping pregnancy and other hazards that face even boys and girls to reach this University of Nairobi at that time, and still today was the university, is not a mean achievement. And I know that it is our pride to see more women and girls achieve even at university level. I know, Mr. Chairman, that I actually have a husband. I married while at the university. I think I was a bit too fast. And I'm grateful because the father of my children, is still my husband today, which is also not a very small achievement. And especially it's a major deal to be able to live with a husband, the same man, for I think now 39 years. I still love my family. I have 4 adult children, 2 lawyers. One is almost finishing his law school. The other one is my partner. I have a doctor in the family, and I have a media personality in the family. Of course, they are all adults with their own families. Maybe that is sufficient to say, but I also want to let the girls in Chicago girls know that at the time I went to school in Chicago girls, in Embu, Bere, those days there was no water. We had to go to fetch water in the streams. And I know that today the life there may be different, but I hope to be able to visit them if I'm approved as the Minister for Water, to find out whether they have running water in the bathrooms, because we did not have running water. We used to fetch water in our karais, and then we would wash outside, and the sisters would, of course, during darkness, we would ensure that you wake up very early, because the bathrooms were also not enough. It was a hard life, but it was good. In terms of the village life, we must be able to ensure that our schools have the adequate facilities. I think maybe that is enough. I, of course, have been elected twice. The 3rd time this particular term. Very grateful to the people of Kandara. It is also a very unique achievement for a woman in a patriarchal society to be elected as a member of parliament for 3 terms. There are mixed feelings for Kandara people. I want to confirm to them I will not be very far away, despite maybe the duties that I may get away from the constituency. But I want to assure them that I will keep in touch with them, albeit that they may have to have another member of parliament. Indeed, campaigns are very, very hot there now, even before I tender my resignation, Chairman. But I want to assure them that I'm grateful, forever grateful. I was the first woman in Murang'a County to be elected in a constituency. After me, 2 other women have been elected. We lost one, but we still hope to get another or 2 other members. And therefore, that is a place and space I'm very proud to speak about. Kandara constituency is very progressive.
Thank you, Alice. That is like the story of all of us. Well done. I'll ask you 1 or 2 other questions. Have you ever been dismissed from office for any conflict between personal interest and public or official interest?
I have not been dismissed, Chairman.
From any office?
In any office or from any office.
With that rich history and background, long practice and so on, what is your financial net worth? The gross is about 392 or thereabout, 392 million shillings. Mm-hmm. And what are your current and anticipated sources of income?
Maybe I could say the net. The net is 218 million shillings. The others are debt, yes. My net worth is 218 million. And this is a value of properties between myself and my husband. Some of them.
Those are family assets?
Those, they are family assets.
Mm-hmm. What are your current and anticipated sources of income?
Until September, I have earned a salary from Parliament and I have been in and off practicing a bit very, very low, low key, because of course as a member of parliament you have very little time in your hands. I get about an allowance, fuel allowance of about 100,000 from my farm, and I also, from these properties, some of them are in my name, I get about 500,000 shillings a month. At the moment, they do not have tenants since COVID, and therefore I have no income coming from that end. I'm relying on the little 100,000 and my salary from MP, of course, yes.
Great. Now I will open up to the members to ask you questions on your docket. And the structure of our engagement is robust but respectful. We encourage you, being a veteran parliamentarian, that all questions are through the chair, all answers are through the chair. Resist any attempt to engage directly with any member of the committee, because that will not be helpful. I'll now give the first opportunity to the majority leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Alice, you've been very passionate, and I could tell you're very passionate on the girl child issues. And now that you mentioned Siakago girls and how you went there and there was no water, I'm sure you're also certain that many parts of Siakago today still don't have water, and so are very many other parts of Kenya. His Excellency the President, in his address to the nation, to Parliament, did indicate that there are plans by the ministry, and I know you are here to report to the ministry, but I would really want to hear your thoughts on the question of the water purchase agreements under the PPP model. And being a lawyer, I'm certain you would be able to interrogate such agreements. But of concern to me would be the cost. Because as you have said, water is critical, water is life. And if that commodity becomes very costly, either to government or to the people, then it also becomes out of reach. What measures do you plan to institute in case you are approved to ensure these water purchase agreements don't end up in PPP arrangements that are extremely expensive, either to the exchequer or the end product being very expensive to the ordinary Kenyan who is yet to access water?
Yes.
One first.
Doing four batches, one day.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Honorable Wahome, some Kenyans have accused you of having a volatile temperament, in other words, of having a short fuse, that you lose your temper so quickly.
Okay.
Some Kenyans accuse you of that. They may be wrong or they may be right. A case in point is the issue of 27th October 2017, when you were captured on camera roughing up and assaulting an IBC official by the name Martin Malonza over some disagreement on the filling of some forms, electoral forms, at Ngalaria Girls High School in Kandara. I'm sure you'll recall that incident. From where you sit, how would you take this act, considering the requirements, the stringent requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, and especially Article 73, Sub-Article 1, which provides that authority assigned to a state officer, and by then you are a state officer, because you are an MP. That authority assigned to a state officer is a public trust to be exercised in a manner that, among other things, demonstrates respect for the people and brings honor to the nation and dignity to the office. Two, there is a matter, that is the succession course number 527 of 1981, if you may remember, where Ms. Alice Mudoni Wahome, I'm not sure if it is you, will confirm, together with other 3 advocates, were accused of misappropriating Kenya shillings 284 million, money that came from the estate of Mbiu Koinange. And this is captured in a judgment that was delivered by Justice Agri Muchelule, then judge of the High Court, on the 7th May 2020. What do you have to say about this matter? And how does it place you within the context of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and particularly Chapter 6 of the Constitution, as you plead with us to approve your nomination to this very high office? Thank you.
I'll give to the Deputy Speaker.
Again, Honorable Wahome, congratulations. As a woman, I'm immensely proud of your getting this far. As you know,
said the same to any man.
yes,
with a light touch. She has
Possibly
not
practicing
said the same to any
affirmative
man.
action.
yeah, it's called positive discrimination. As you, I see that part of your docket will deal with the sanitation. And as you know, 73% of the plastic waste generated in Kenya remains uncollected and unrecycled, which is something that can produce energy for the cities around Nairobi. How do you plan to make a change to this tide and ensure that recycling and proper sanitation does, in fact, become a thing of the order of the day? Thank you.
Yes, Junet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chair, I wanted to ask the nominee that the docket that she has been nominated for is a docket that requires it is services all over the country. Water is essential and water is required all over the country. So I wanted to ask her, to ask the nominee, how well does she know Kenya outside Kandara and outside Siakago Girls High School? What is her grasp of the country? Does she know outside Kandara how the country looks like? The second question I wanted to ask, and my last one, is there is a matter that came up in 2016, I think I was in Parliament, when Justice Philomena Mwilu was being vetted. And the nominee raised an issue and said that she had taken a bribe of 3 million shillings on a matter that she has filed in court. And she even wrote a letter to the EACC claiming that she's ready to present a proof. What is her position on that matter? Does she still stand on those grounds that that matter was and it is as she said at that moment in time? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You may answer those 4 before you get another batch of 4.
Thank you. I will start chronologically the way they came.
Yes.
Kimani Ichung'wa, you want to know how we shall deal with the hire purchase agreements for purposes of ensuring that we come up with, infrastructure. How shall that anchor or sit with the consumers and maybe the water development agencies? The cost aspect of that, how shall we regulate? First, we do have WASREP, that is the main body that deals with the water regulation in terms of costing. But if you recall that on the State of the Nation address, the President indicated that he would be willing to commit the country to the tune of 500 billion for water resources development. I would if I am approved, be supporting that, and I hope that it is something that Parliament will be able to attend to and support. At the moment, we are having a budget of 24 billion shillings, and from the GOK, and then another 54 billion shillings, totaling to about 78 billion. The money that we have, the 54 is from partners, World Bank, IMF, African Development Bank. So if we are going to raise 500 billion shillings between now and Vision 2030, we will need to partner with the private developers. The concern of Kenyans is understandable because they are wondering, are we selling a basic right or leaving it to the exploitation of commercial or private individuals or companies? The purchase agreement, water purchase agreement, will be able, in my view, working with the Office of the Attorney General, stakeholders, the public in public participation, be able to come up with the proper frameworks that will ensure that Kenyans are not exposed. Currently, when the government develops water, when the ministry engages the water development works agencies, then they are, of course, the water service providers. The regulation in place, the strategy and policy in place ensures that the element of cost is under control, regulated, and I know there are cases where it may not be properly regulated, and that is a part of the reforms that we are working on. For me, it is possible. We must not see public-private partnerships as commercializing the water. We must see that as a need to develop the infrastructure, the way you would invest on a highway, on a road, and then engage the agency for purposes of then ensuring water is distributed to the consumer at a controlled and regulated space and pace. And I think I have answered that question. I'm a practicing advocate. I've held my certificate since 1985. To date, I have a practicing certificate. Anybody who has taken clients' money may not be very lucky to have a practicing certificate for the period that I have had. The complaint you allude to occurred or was filed in 2012. The DCI has had that file, and it only becomes live when I'm about to go to elections, 2013, 2017, and 2022. You will find it being brought up even in the media, but finally, the DPP had the opportunity with the DCI to look at the matter. It is 3 advocates plus myself, and the Office of the Director has directed that there is no criminal liability in the matter. I don't want to go into deeper details, but any advocate who is handling an estate matter or estate funds has a duty and responsibility to file an statement of account in court. What the court or the complainant would do is to demand for an account, because we did account for all the monies that we received, and I do not owe, neither do my colleagues, the other 3 colleagues, including the late Munari. I believe that is the answer. We have not been prosecuted, we have not been charged, and I do not see any charge coming because it was pure malice or a party that did not want to pay fees. Let me remind you that an advocate has a lien over any money that they hold. They are entitled to charge their fees directly and render an account to the client. If a client is not satisfied, they can ask the court to look at the bill, do taxation, meaning the bill will be assessed by a deputy registrar on behalf of the parties. And if they need further recourse, the Law Society has a complaints commission. That matter has never gone to the complaints commission. I believe it was vendetta, if maybe not by the client, but advocates that felt maybe it was a good brief and they could take over from us. Let me go to the question of, I think you had another. You were asking in terms of public trust. I believe I will be able to hold the office with honor. I have not been taken to any court of law, and even assuming I was taken to a court of law, maybe there would be dishonor if I'm found guilty. Assault, allegations of assault in the 2017 elections, I want to say that that matter was also investigated. No return was made in terms of any charges. I have not been charged. There was an altercation. I do not recall. You would not say what happened was assault against the returning officer. We had a tussle. It's regrettable, I would say so, but we had a tussle. The background of that was an issue of accounting in terms of votes given wrongly, posted wrongly. We had a returning officer who did not want to answer. It did not need to end where it ended. And that is something I'm sure even myself, we regret. We could have solved it a little better and tidier. Gladys Shorey is asking me about recycling. How do we deal with sanitation? These are matters that, the ministry is involved with the development of water, resources, sanitation, and irrigation. In terms of sanitation, per year, we are funding all necessary projects to the tune of only about, including donor money, about 31 billion shillings. The money is not enough to do what we would want to do. This is an area that has recently, because of the need to improve the environment, has received a lot of interest, and I believe partners will come in to assist, while the government must also commit more funding, and Parliament is a key player in that. I think it is an area that we would work for. We do have a strategy in place and policy, so what is remaining is just to implement and move forward. I'm reminded that the President has said he would want to take up the cleaning of the Nairobi River in a very serious manner as soon as possible, as part of ensuring that our sanitation is sorted. Junet Mohammed, Mheshimiwa Junet Mohammed, you are asking whether, other than Kandara, I know any other part of the country. I think in the ministry, I do not need to know any part of the country to be able to implement the policies that the ministry has developed. We have policy in place, we have strategy, reforms are in place, we have both the statutory and regulatory mechanisms, and we have very serious technical support teams in the ministry where there may be deficit or need to add, to improve, to train further. We shall do so that the designs, a lot of designs, including national master policy. I just need to sit on my desk and be taken through the national water policy and the national master plan for water. And then, therefore, I'll be able to find your constituency where it is or any other.
But is
I
it
would be
true
happy.
that you don't know anywhere else apart from
I would
Kandara?
be happy to go. Of course,
That was his question.
Mr. Chairman, to answer the Honorable Junet, I have traveled in all the counties in this country, both at my own free time and also during the very extensive campaigns that we did, including Junet Mohammed. I'm sure he has traveled. Mheshimiwa, I'll be able to find my way around, definitely.
Thank you. We'll take the next batch. Hey, Junet says you have not answered his other question. Which? There?
If I'm allowed, Chairman, I would like to leave that question because the Honorable Judge is now serving as a deputy CJ in the country. I had raised the matter before Justice and Legal Affairs Committee before she was vetted. She was vetted and went through the process of vetting. There is no need, if I'm allowed, by the owner of the question and the Speaker, Chair, sir, not to answer any further or deal with the matter.
Preclude us from discussing judges at that level without substantive motions. You're right.
That's right.
I'll take the next batch of 4. The Honorable Owen Paya, the Honorable, wow. The Honorable Murugara, the Honorable Amisi and Naisula. You will have this next round.
Can I start, Speaker? All right. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and to Honorable Alice Wahome, our nominee for water, sanitation, and irrigation. There is a clear relationship, or actually a correlation, between lack of water and poverty. In the Africa Water Vision by 2025, that is, Africa should at least have water by 2025 everywhere, potable water by 2025, which is just 3 years from now. If you look at that document, it examines this relationship very clearly and puts African states on their toes to ensure that water. Looking at Kenya the way it is, I think we are very far away from achieving that. My question to you, Honorable Alice, is as CS of Water and Sanitation and Irrigation, how will you reconfigure this country to achieve this vision by 2025? And what is it that you'd want Parliament to do so that you can achieve this vision, not only for the country, but also for Africa? Secondly, if I put it within this supplementary, Mr. Speaker, there are places in this country, if they had water, they wouldn't be as poor as they are. The docket on irrigation is placed squarely into you. How will you bring all this together to ensure that irrigation plays a role, but also water is found at home so that we can curtail the poverty that we have in this country? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. To our nominee, our constitution, we heavily borrowed from advanced democracies, US, UK, Canada, some Scandinavian countries like Sweden. But the best practices are not borrowed. We see ministers in these countries, whenever they are faced with flaws or mistake, they resign. But in the history of our country, you've seen ministers saying that some of them that may be known to you, that they rather die than resign. We get a lot of challenges during our working, especially these high-profile positions. There is a lot of pressure, and somebody accused you of being temperamental. Are we going to see a change that whenever there is a flaw to you, maybe in the course of your work, the pressure increases higher than normal, and your hand moves closer to somebody at a speed faster than lightning. Are you going to resign? As flimsy, as petty as the offense is, but are we going to see more responsible minister this time round?
Next, Morogara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is to the nominee. Water is everything. In fact, they say water is life. And especially to poor rural folks in the poor areas of the country, the arid and semi-arid areas, which include my constituency, Tharaka Nithi County, the eastern region, Ukambani, the northeastern region, and the northern parts of Kenya. We are now experiencing a drought. There is a hue and a cry in the country, not just on the part of food, but on the part of water, such that it has become a way of life that every 3-4 years there is a drought, and the cycle is repeated whereby we have no food, our livestock die, and the rivers that traverse those areas actually dry up. My question is, as a measure of extreme urgency, dharura, what plans do you have to ensure that this problem in the rural areas, in the dry areas, semi-arid areas of the country, this problem is ameliorated such that it is not going to be a cycle. It may be a one-off, but not a cycle that is repeated every 3-4 years to the detriment of the citizens who live in those areas.
Thank you, Chair. To Honorable Alice, and I would really advise and recommend that you really visit every part of this country when you're in that docket, so that you can actually feel the whole issue of water and how some parts of this country, people are really suffering. And so I do empathize with Kenyans in various parts of the country that have not had a drop of rain for 2 years now, and there has been no water for domestic and animal use. The case of human suffering is in the increase, while loss of livelihood continue to characterize life in the arid and semi-arid areas. And this is a matter of now, urgent. What urgent interventions and reforms will you put in place as a cushion to the devastating drought situation to see to it that households and school-going children have water?
Excellent. Next. Who was the... Oh, we've done